Hello. Welcome to today's stream. What we are gonna do today is it's just a few days to the release, but I found quite an annoying issue that I need to look at. And if I hey there, John. Let me see here. I'm gonna show you what the problem is. I was thinking if I could put the description on the screen somehow also. Maybe I yeet this one away. I'm moving the yeah, let's just disable that silly animation thingy I have there so I can write here. So today, fixing annoying physics timestep stuff. And what does that mean? Well, it's only a few days to release, but I've realized something quite annoying. So I'll show you. Ah, you excited, John? That's very nice. So here's the game, and if I play it now, everything looks fine. The thing here is that there is a few layers of problems here. I have developed this game on a computer with a 60 Hz monitor, right? And my physics code wasn't the best, right? And I made the physics work nicely, like smoothly and stuff. But in doing so, I've added an assumption that my game runs at 60 Hz. So when I tried my game on my laptop, which has one of those OLED 90 Hz monitors, then I noticed it slightly stutters. And that's because I've locked the game at 60 FPS, because my physics code wasn't that good. Which is not a good thing to do. So I've locked the physics code at 60 FPS. Not so good. That makes it stutter on 90 FPS screens. Not so good. In order to remove the physics times the the frame rate lock, then I need to in order to remove that, then I need to fix my physics so that it removes that assumption of it running at 60 Hz. It's just very badly coded right now, and when I look at it now, I realize that there's an assumption that it runs at 60 Hz. So we will look at that and try to fix it. And hello, yes, Alonso, I've coded my own physics for the game, but actually the only thing in the game that has any kind of real physics is the player character, because all the NPCs kind of just stand there. There's the rocket that flies around, but that one doesn't use the same physics. The only one that actually does any kind of box collision stuff. You see these colliders here, and you see the player has a collider here and stuff. So it's only the player actually that has these kind of things. So I don't have like my physics checks are actually inside the player. Yes. So you, like Alonso says, hello Han HA, which I guess is my friend. Yes, Alonso, I could have a separate physics tick for that, and that's sort of what I have. So let me show you what it does. So since it's only the player that does the physics stuff, then I have all my physics things sort of. Let me need to make the chat a bit smaller so I can reach my scroll bar. So down here, right, it's like a physics step, and then it does like a loop, and it loops as long as the physics time is bigger than something, and then it does some stuff. And it does the check first in the Y direction, and then it does it in the X direction and resolves the physics and all that. and all that works fine, and stuff. And the game, when I wrote this, what I was trying to fix was so that the game, if I had run it at low frame rate, like I just for funsies, you know, limited it to 20 FPS. Yeah. So if I limit it to that, then this stuff fixed that, so you didn't, you know, fall through the ground, because it does a loop of checking if this accumulator here, which it adds the delta time to, if that is bigger than a value, and it does some small steps over and over each frame on all that. So yeah, so all that works fine in low frame rate. What I didn't realize was that I kind of messed up things for high frame rate. So there's two problems here. I have a target FPS somewhere here. This stuff creates stutter on a 90 Hz screen, since you have like one frame. You have one frame that takes 1/60 seconds, and then so every 2 frames you have like a double frame. And no, how is it? Wait. Yeah, so every other frame sort of feels twice as long, is what happens. So I want to remove this, right? So we can remove that, then we run the game. And what you might notice if we remove that, okay, I have to restart it, because I set the FPS limit when I open the window, which is not hot reloadable. So if I restart that, then see here, if seems like it stutters a tiny bit. This is not, but it's going to be obvious when I add in the real stuttering. So because currently I have VSync on, so it's still running at 60 FPS, right? So if we turn off the VSync also, so we can simulate a 90 Hz monitor, kind of like this, by doing like this, window, because I guess I could have done this stream on my laptop, which has this 90 Hz monitor, but I don't want to do that, right? Set target FPS 90, but we turn off the VSync, so then we can actually hit the 90 with my messed up physics code. And now you're gonna see some funny stuff happen. Wait, you're not. Yes. So what happens now, if you run here, I think you can see that the player character sort of like sometimes it runs smoothly, and sometimes it looks like it sort of, let's go over here where there's more space. Sorry, I zoomed in here just to, maybe this is actually half covered now by like that. So run off the screen. So if we run like this, then we see that it runs fine, and now it's stuttering, and now it runs fine. And so if I run it on my 90 Hz laptop without the 60 Hz FPS log, then this happens, and this is because of my crappy physics code. So what I want to do is to remove the FPS log and fix my physics code, right? Because then it will work on all machines. So we will look at that a bit. So we can keep this one here for now, because it just simulates a 90 Hz screen right now, kinda. Physics T. And now let's look at all the stupid things I've done here. Yeah, so the stutter was like sort of you see like 2 images of the cat, and it's sort of like doing something weird. And that so as long as you're on a 90 hertz screen, it runs fine. If you're on a 60 hertz screen, it runs fine. If you're on a 90 hertz screen, it stutters in another way. It just stutters in the sense that every other frame looks like a sort of twice as long. It just doesn't look smooth on a 90 hertz screen. But on a 90 hertz screen without the 60 hertz lock, then it's just broken. Then it looks like it currently does, which is this kind of awful stuff. But there are several problems here. So I have this loop here, and it does this weird thing where it's like, if physics t is bigger than a physics step divided by 2, and physics step is 1 over 60 seconds. So this means that physics step, this is like 1 over 30. Wait, can I do math? No, 1 over 120. No, it's not. Wait. Doing math live. Yeah, so it's 1 over 30. Anyways, it's not so important. It essentially checks if this is the accumulator where it puts in the delta time each frame, and checks if there is at least half a physics step left in there. Then it does this stuff. This is all just something I hacked together and then sort of forgot about it because it seemed to work well, but it only works well on a 60 hertz screen. Well, it only works well with a 60 hertz lock, and I can't have a 60 hertz lock because it's just not a nice thing to do to people. Like, people who have 120 screens are so used to having those that they actually see when a game that's supposed to run at 60 hertz does not run it. No, when a game that if they have a 120 hertz screen, they will see that a game is locked at 60, like, because they're so used to this ultra super smooth. There's all these myths that like, I can't see more than 60. Like, nah, you get used to it. You will notice and stuff. So there is this nice blog article that people tend to bring up in these cases, which is, I can show here. This is called, you can Google this, fix your time step. Look, it's from the past, but it doesn't matter because it's quite a good general blog post. And we can skip over all this and just look at the last point here. So what this guy is doing is, this is the main loop of the game. Each frame of the main loop, there's an accumulator. This is sort of the physics time accumulator. You add in the frame time, and then you run a while loop and checks as long as there is more than a frame. This person sort of assumes that the this is the frame time here, right? This is how much time passed between the previous frame and the new frame, and this dt is sort of the physics, or whatever you want to call it, time, which is sort of equivalent to this thing here, right? So yes, this is 1 over 100. This, and then there is some clamping here in case the frame time is too big. But never mind that. We just the important part here is. Let's try to zoom a bit, and then it just went crazy. The important part here is that you have an accumulator each frame, and then during the frame you run a loop and you check if there is more than a frame's worth of time left in accumulator. And what that does is, if your frame suddenly became longer, so you're running at low frame rate, then it will sort of get in between physics states, and it will jump you between all those. And then this integrate function here, that's just sort of like your game update function. So it sends in this delta time, and what is t here? I think t is that's the current time. So it's the current time, the delta time, and the current state, and then it subtracts from the accumulator and runs until the accumulator is less than a time step. So and then it does some other stuff down here. So we can start with sort of, this is all very sane. I've done insane things in my game. So if we look at this, I have a physics step of 1/60 here. So if you're running at, this is like 0.016 seconds, right? If you're running at what's give me a 1/90. Yeah, that's something like that. 90 FPS is roughly something like that. So that's the frame time if you're at 90 FPS. And this is, so then you can first ask yourself, like, what's a good physics step here? This one won't be able to evaluate. If you're running at 90 Hertz, then this will not be able to, because it will add just this amount to the accumulator, which is this thing. And then it will run the loop down here for as long as, we're gonna remove this divided by 2. That's like, yeah, that's a crazy thing I did. There's a hack that just made things look like they work, but we're all gonna try to sort through this nonsense I have made. And you know, this is of course a bit stressful because I'm supposed to be done with the game in 6 days, and now I found like bad physics things. But the good thing is, the only thing in the game that uses proper physics is the player character. Everything else uses, like, the rocket only uses splines that it can, doesn't matter. There is nothing else in the game, so I just need to fix the player character. So that's like, had this been a game where, you know, everything was physically simulated, then I maybe wouldn't have been able to fix this, but I think I can fix it. So we're just gonna try to do that. Yeah, let's see here if I have two chats open somehow. Interesting. I have one over here and I have one over here. Anyways, so fixing physics time step stuff, in a sense, what we're doing is we are gonna make the game truly render the delta time independent. Make the physics truly render delta time. Well, make the render make the game truly render smoothly. With fixed step physics. So that can be our, it's good to formulate. Hello Spriters, I am from Sweden. The Polish last name might confuse sometimes. Okay, so what I was trying to say here before is that we have the physics step, which is 16 milliseconds, and this is like 11 milliseconds, right? When you run 90 FPS, so you won't be able to. You do one frame and you add into the accumulator up here, like the DT. This is the calculated time for how long each frame is. So it will add like 11 milliseconds to that, and then every other frame it can't run this loop. But that's, you know, if you do this properly, then that's fine, because what you can do is just interpolate the state between those 2 points instead of doing all this. Because what I do currently is I only draw the player where the player actually is, but we're gonna try to add something so that I can interpolate it between the different points. So even if I have a frame where, say, the in-between frames where I wasn't able to do a physics step, or you know, there is in general just some leftover stuff in here that I wasn't able to eat up, then that still works, sort of. So that's what we're trying to do. So we have removed this divided by 2. We can keep this one. We can keep looking at this every now and then, because it's a good little article actually. This it's just the confusing part for some people might be the stuff at the bottom here, which we will look at soon when we notice that my stuff doesn't really work. Thank you, Spriters, that you like the Odin videos. Hello, Night Owl. Night Owl. I can't talk anymore. You drink some water. So what this thing does is that it just, this thing here, the accumulator here, is equivalent to my physics t, and it adds the frame time to the accumulator, which is the same as adding dt to mine, because their dt is my physics step and my dt is my frame time. And so we do that here. I have this if statement here that we will remove, so we just do the for loop instead soon, but we'll look at that. And then at the bottom here I do minus physics t minus equals pdt. Pdt is just physics step. I don't know why I use that local constant here for that, because let's see here, it does dt. The t is just the constant time step this one uses. So that's my physics step. Okay, let's remove, I think, let's do it like this. Physics dt. Then we remove this. Then we take this, put it there. I think it's just used in a few places, but I don't think it's that many that I need a silly local variable for it. Okay. So now if we run the game, so now if we run the game, I think stuff will look pretty nasty, because it's, yeah, and that's fine. What happens if we go back to this 90, set target 90 FPS, and we go down to, did I window init window? I just want to see, oh, that's where I was. Window flags, I mean. This stuff. It's called .hint vsync, I think. No, okay. Vsync hint. It says here the error. This is the error of saying, giving all the different enum variations. I just want to turn the vsync back on, and maybe we turn off the window init window. Yeah, we've turned off the frame limit completely. So this will be all very, and now this is very hard to tell, but this doesn't actually look that good, because there is some kind of slight, it's hard to explain exactly why, but it doesn't move perfectly smooth. It feels like it's sort of stuttering along. And what we're seeing here is exactly how the game feels to play. Well, it's actually worse, but it's a bit similar to how it feels to play it with the 60 FPS lock on the 90Hz screen. You get this weird stuttering. It's not smooth at all. All right. So let's keep it like that. So we can just, now we have something that looks broken and we can try to fix it. Yeah, and then we can, or actually, you know what? I want some, for the sake of the stream, I want something that looks as bad as possible. I mean, I want the other test case with turning off VSync but locking it at 90. I think looked worse. Yeah, because now the cat goes, like every now and then it kind of goes, the whole game goes smoother, but it's easier to spot that the cat is sort of having this almost all the time. It's like you see almost two pictures of it. This looks broken. If that actually yeah, it should come through on the stream because it's a 60 FPS stream. Yeah, so let's go back to cat update. It's quite good to go through these things on stream because I sort of explain it to people and then I get a better idea of how to fix it myself. So what we'll do here now is this if statement here. This is stupid. Inside some of my code here I do some things with, like, it checks if I collide in my head and stuff, and then it's like, okay, but it still needs the stupid thing is that it sets all these flags to false each frame, like collides in head, feet, blah blah blah. So I think what I should do instead is I take these and I shove them inside this if statement here, right? And then I can go down here where I have all this stuff. This is just like for when it didn't do a physics tick, then it still updated those bools. But I don't need to do that. I can just not set them to false unless I'm doing a physics tick, right? So now I'm like, okay, if physics t is bigger than physics dt, then we clear all the flags because we are gonna at least step once, so we will know, we will get a new value for these guys. Right, so we can compile that. Don't need to restart because this is just, yeah. Hopefully all this still sort of, the colliding head and stuff and feet is for like when you slide down. So you can jump up here. You see there's a little collider at the bottom here, and it's sort of, that's what, while it's sliding down, it checks if that collider is inside any collider. Then it knows your feet hit. We can also try it over here. See if I can hit my head on something. Yeah, maybe there's a good place. Oh, I know. I'm gonna teleport over here. What? Yeah, so that works. That's the head hitting there. So let's go. Yeah, I should also maybe before the release clean up some of these colliders, because there's like random colliders out here and it generates climb points here. You could do this, I mean, and walk around here. Can't be here, but the physics also works. The physics might be crap, but it works quite well. I never have any problems with you falling through the ground. So, yeah. And that's because of this fixed time step that I have. Because this loops, even if you're running at 10 FPS, it will still, when it updates the actual physics, it will just loop and make sure that it, if you're at 10 FPS and you have a physics time step of 1/60, then 10 FPS is like 0.1 second. And then you can, you can fit the quite how many of these 0.1 divided by 0.0, no wait, 0.016 times 8 maybe, no, 0.016 times 7, no, 0. Yeah, you can do, so if you're running at 10 FPS, then this will loop for each of those frames. You will get 6 physics updates where it moves it incrementally. It just checks so it doesn't fall through the ground because of the low frame rate, because of varying delta time. It would then, here it sort of moves you with the velocity and the delta time. So if you just use the game delta time here, which is very large at low frame rate, then it will. I don't expect my game to run at low frame rate, but the reason this is good to have also is if someone messes with their computer and get an FPS spike, you can get the FPS spikes by just like in games. You could, if you have a game with your own physics, try this. You run and then you jump, and then while you're in the air, you take the window and move it around. In Raylib, for example, it's currently accumulating delta time. So when I let go, I will have many seconds, and that just sort of landed because it went like, it was probably like what do I know, 10 seconds there, but it actually took it in many tiny steps and got here and hit the ground anyways. So that's all good. Yeah, I will. It will probably work at 144 hertz screens. I only have 90 hertz screens to test on, but hello Akku. So okay, so now what we've done now is we have made sure that what did I change it recently? Oh yeah, I removed that, so this only happens if it actually has timestep. That's good. So now this loop is running. The problem now is that for the frames when you don't have enough in the accumulator to do anything, you won't get any movement at all, and then you also get stuttering, which is the stuff you're seeing here. So that's the next thing to fix, and that's sort of the final thing. And this is sort of might be the hard part, because you see, yeah, every now and then it runs fine, and then it's just sort of stuttering there, and that's because it's not able to update the physics on those properly on those frames. Then everything just gets a bit weird. Anyways. So the way you fix that, so this is sort of, done now in that sense, because this physics code, by the way, is not that fancy. It's just, oh yeah, it applies gravity, and then it first checks in the y direction and checks against colliders and pushes you out of collisions in the y direction, and then it checks against the x. It does them separately so that you have a sort of you get sort of deterministic behavior that you always get pushed in y first, because otherwise if you push in both directions always, like you push with a vector, then you get this kind of you will always get pushed, maybe quite often like sideways in strange ways, but maybe you want to prioritize, like, oh, first push me out in the y direction, and if I'm then colliding with something from the sides, then push me out of that as well, and that can give quite different results compared to pushing out of pushing the whole vector at once, because then you have like an overlap inside the collider. Wait, maybe I should. Yeah, because if you push with a whole vector, then you have like an overlap that can point sideways, and then your character sort of gets snapped in weird directions when you're running on flat ground, because sometimes it gets a Yeah. Bah. Anyways, enough about that. Let's look at the rest of the problem. So now we're doing all this. So now we need to look at the interpolation of this. And this can be the hard part, because I only render the player where the player currently is. So if you look here at this code here, it moves the player position with a velocity, and then it does some collision checks and pushes it out of collision. And then the player will get rendered at this position. So for the frames where there is no physics update, or there is a bit of time left in physics T, because, you know, it only decrements this like this, then you will, like, depending how much is left in there, you will get, like, it will feel like the frames have like a different length sort of, and you get stuttering. Let's see here. Oh, nice. Yeah, Akku is working on his own game. You can check it out in my Odin, I have a Discord server. I don't know why I said in my Odin. In my Discord server, I have Akku often posts nice things about his game. He uses what is it? What's it called? Steamboat Willie Mickey Mouse for player character. Great use of public domain. So at the end here, we've done all this. So at the end here, we have sort of it. This is the stuff that does the interpolation. So what that means is, like, if you have something left in this accumulator, then you maybe want to use that to kind of move your player, like you want to move up to the point, like do a smooth movement from the previous frame that you have calculated to the new one, and then use whatever is left in the accumulator as some kind of interpolation delta time, interpolation time. The stuff that can be confusing with this stuff is that this while loop checks if the accumulator is bigger than dt. Okay, so then this will stop, and there's some stuff left in the accumulator, and then it makes an alpha by taking the accumulator and dividing it by the physics time step, which will give you a number between, since this thing is always smaller than dt because of this loop, this thing will be between 0 and 1. So it becomes like a lerp time thingy, because, you know, lerps usually have between 0 and 1. So what it does then, it takes the current state times the alpha plus the previous state times minus 1 minus the alpha. And, you know, this can look a bit weird, because who has a whole state of the game that you can multiply with a number? No code actually looks like this, but this is just, if we look at lerp, this was a funny one. Yeah, if we look at lerp, like here is lerp implemented in Odin, it's something, and you have a time, you have two different values you want to lerp between, and then you have the time, and you take the thing times t of 1 and the other thing times 1 minus t, and this is exactly the same thing as here. So this is just a lerp, and so what this means is just do a lerp, you know, your fancy code for handling this goes here, sort of. But you probably don't have a game where you can lerp your state like that, the whole game state. That will, unless you're doing some very funny kind of stuff. So let's try to just hack in something now that works for the player and then take it from there. So I can't lerp on the player's position. I can't lerp that because that's sort of the true position that the physics uses. But I could add sort of an extra position variable that we render it with, and then we try using that, and then we see if we can generalize it. Okay. So how do we do that? This previous state that this article talks about has, this is, previous is, wait, where does it actually, okay. Previous state is wherever it was. We can, if you think about just the position, then the previous state is, where was it just before? Down here, previous state is the last position the player had before the last loop in here. So if you moved once, then all right. I think the funny stuff with all this is that down here is using whatever is left in the accumulator, right? And it's dividing it by dt. But it has the current state it has made was for whatever is for like a full frame using the t here. Like here it sets the current state. So it's just a bit weird how it feels like it's using the whatever's left in the accumulator to make this alpha value, and then uses that to lerp between the previous state and the current state. But the current state actually has nothing to do with this, what's left over in the accumulator. That's sort of in the interest of the frame that would come after the one represented by current state to me. Which is funny. I guess it might not really matter. Maybe they say something about this here. Not really. Yeah, so here it even says a remainder of dt divided by 2 means that we are currently halfway between the current physics step and the next. But here it's blending between the previous physics step and the current one. But I guess it can't really know where the next one is, so this is sort of fudging it a bit. If anyone sees what I also see here, it's just a bit weird. Like, this is not the next step, this is the current step, but it's down here it's talking as if this was the next step almost. Well, we can probably do something like that. So how would we do that? Let's do something interesting here. Let's is this the, let's go to the player cat. This has lots of crap in it, and we can try adding a render pos vec2, right? And then here we say prev. I have a prev, this is annoying, I have already a prev pos here, but that's the previous frame's position. Previous names, this is whatever. I will write prev pos equals p.pos. Okay, and then in all this code p.pos will be updated. Actually, maybe we can just I will try to, maybe I can combine these concepts somehow, but I don't want to mess with this now because this is used for like calculating delta velocity, like this is used in some other code for calculating velocity based on just how much you moved from one frame to the other. I don't want to mess with that right now. So we say previous pos equals p.pos, okay. And then we can remove that. And then we say, so for each of these loops, then we say previous pos equals p.pos. This will, of course, the first lap not do anything, but this just makes sure that this has a valid value always, even if this doesn't run. Right. And then we go to the bottom here, and now we will try to do something like this. We'll just copy this out to see. That went well. So we have this crap, and then we can maybe say yeah, physics blend alpha is physics blend t is p dot physics t divided by physics dt, which is the same, says the same stuff with this. That's my accumulator. And now let's try doing p dot render pos equals, and then we should be able to lerp from A to B. See here. Yeah, exactly. Math dot lerp. We just use the lerp function. So that's just all this is. It's just a lerp. We go from previous pos to p dot pos with physics blend t, and that's this stuff, right? So we can try now to compile this, see if we've done any mistake. Like I said, I'm just trying to hack in something now to see if I can make it work for the player, and then maybe we might not need to do much more than that, because my game currently this is not used, so I didn't expect it to do anything yet. I just wanted to see if the game worked. Right. Right. Here's the render point. And then we can go to draw world. Let's see here. Here's lots of crap. Very good. This is how a game can look when you're just about to finish it. Right. Here it goes through all entities and draws them, and then it uses entity.pos. So this render pos, I realize I don't have a special case for the player. Let's do something funny. Let's go to game. Oh, we are in game. Let's go to player cat again. What's the... I'm thinking if I could maybe do this... in a fancier way somehow. Maybe not. Oh well. Let's hack this in an entity for now. So we have the render pos here. Let me can maybe put it as a maybe, so you don't always have a render pause. This, yeah, we'll see what happens. This still works because now the render pause gets this is that compiled because this will set the render pause. So now maybe in draw world we can go back here to this thingy here. We can be like, well, this is just some crap I don't need. Oh yeah, and here it uses the position. Let's calculate it up here. And this position up here is like, it's the entity's position plus if it's in a parallax layer, which the trees and stuff in the background uses, then it adds a number to that, so to sort of move it a bit. How can I? Is there a nice way to do this? Let's just do this. If e.render pause do like this. This gets the value of the maybe if it's there, and then I'm gonna steal this line. But right. Pos equals rp plus blah 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 blah. This might work. And now I think, unless I'm wrong, it uses the render, and that did look a bit smoother already. Yeah, it uses the render pause, and that does look smoother to me. I mean, we can easily compare by just doing this. And then the game crashed. I have a crash in my hot reload. For somehow it happens like one time in 100. Okay, maybe not that. Maybe one time in 30. Because we used to have this weird stuttering here where it sort of does this kind of crazy stuff here. So that stuff, oh, I closed it for some reason. That stuff is gone when we do it like this, which is good. This is very scary to have these problems so close to shipping. But yeah, this does look a lot better already, but it doesn't look perfect if you ask me. There's still something off. Now the character looks a bit smudged out in a weird way. Interesting. But all this stuff is probably fine. This should, yeah, that's gonna get the correct. This is gonna be of the correct type because dividing an F32 by a number. Okay, but it does look a lot better. So I'm quite happy with that. Right there, I pressed T. My mouse cursor was up here, and I wanted to jump up there, so I pressed T. I think I know what's going on. Why it still looks a bit off, because the camera is looking at the player's position. What if we turn it around? And for the player, there is like a physics position, and then down here it just sets the normal position, and then everything just works. Maybe that's better now that I think of it. So then we just do this. Let's try that. Then we remove this crap. And then we go to player cat, blah, blah, blah. And then we say physics pos. We say vec2. This is going to have some problems with like enable entity. And also whenever we set the position on the player, it will end up at the wrong place. Let's try this first, just to see. V dot physics pos equals. Oh, I don't know. V dot pos. That's just the initial value of it. And then this stuff won't be needed at all. Okay, let's not be too destructive of our fabulous code here. Look at the git diff later to see what I messed up. Where? Yeah, and then this stuff doesn't work. But here we'll just do p.pos is previous physics pos to p.physics pos blah blah blah. Right, we can never set physics pos to the value, like, you know, one could be tempted to, before the loop here, set physics pos to this value, but the whole point here is that this value is never, the physics will never look at it. So all this stuff has to change. This is a bit messy. See if I survive. Where are the other places where it uses the pos? Here, and there, and there, and there, and there. And then, is that it? Let's go through it again. And there we have one. I think that's it, right? Previous physics pos is p dot physics pos. I will do that. So what I'm trying to do now is instead just have a concept of a physics position, and then set our player position based on by lerping between those 2 points, and then hopefully it all looks good. Maybe, let's see, teleport up. You see, now I have problems like this. I can't teleport anymore because then it sets the position. Yeah, okay. How does this? Yeah, that does look better. I'm gonna fix my teleport temporarily. p.physics pos equals p.pos. Sus. Now I will be able to teleport, yes. Because I want to run here out on the open fields, because otherwise it's too hard to see what's happening. Oh yeah, there's bugs because of this. That's broken. Still looks a bit weird. It still looks like it's it looks a bit like we run now, well, except for that bug. Does look quite okay. It's just some frames getting stuck. Just like before when it was jittering a lot, now when it sort of does the same jitter, you can see on the eyes here that it's like sometimes becomes a bit like blurry on the eyes. Stop getting stuck. I don't know if anyone can see that. It gets a bit blurry. Yeah. So it kind of works. I mean, there's lots of bugs here. I can look at those, but I'm trying to figure out the best way forward with this. All this stuff is a bit romanticized, this article, because it sort of does the update here, and the update only knows the true position, like the physics post position, but then it sort of renders with this stuff, and that's sort of what I'm going for. But you know, I might have other code that updates maybe some camera position or something that uses the wrong position. For example, my camera needs to be smack on the player constantly. It cannot look at sort of like, you know, this stuff here is the interpolate. If we think of this as a position of the player, then this stuff here is sort of okay, it's only used for rendering, but I actually would need to use the interpolated player position also for updating the camera, because the player must sit at kind of the correct camera position, which might be one of the things we're seeing here. Interesting. I'm gonna see if there's a little bit more coffee. Hey. How are you?
I just made gluten.
Huh?
Gluten for tomorrow.
What you made seitan?
For tomorrow. Because I used to mix too many times, so I let it rest in the fridge. I'm tired now. Losing body.
Oh. I'm looking at physics things. It's going okay. Annoying problem to have. La 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 la. Hello. I found a tiny bit more coffee. So, let's think a bit here. I think the previous solution was better. I mean, the one. So what I should do inside the loop here is actually change the position. And then if I need something different for rendering, so, you know, this is sort of a thing I knew about these things, but you know, I haven't done a whole game myself before, so I didn't think of all the implications, and I think the reason maybe I ended up in this situation is because I did assumptions. You know, if you check your assumptions, then usually you figure out all the problems in your program. It's like, but I done the stupid assumptions that was like, okay, my I thought my at first I thought my physics code was truly frame rate independent, and in a sense it was, but it didn't do the interpolation properly, which was the stuff we saw like this stuff here. So it did the fixed frame time step, but then it didn't do the interpolation, so that if there is something left in the accumulator, it sort of smoothly moves anyways. It didn't do any of that. And but then I sort of I didn't think much more of that, because I just thought that maybe that doesn't matter, because if you have a high enough frame rate, then you won't notice anyway, or something like that, I thought. So I kind of set that aside. But then when I noticed that the game but then I put in a 60 FPS limit, because this didn't work that well when there wasn't a 60 FPS limit. And that was just, the first part was assumption that this stuff actually worked, this stuff I done actually worked properly. But the second part was just like bad decisions. I mean, the second part being putting in an FPS limit. So now I'm trying to remove the FPS limit and add the interpolation. So, but like I said, I think my previous version was better, which means that I should update the position directly, not any physics position, and then I will try to fix some kind of interpolated position. So let's undo some stuff here. Blah 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 blah. Okay. Physics post, yeah. This. Yeah. Now we're back at how it was. Maybe all we need is a proc that tells us the player's position, and it considers this one, that one, and this time here. Maybe that's all we need. It's a bit silly that I'm also thinking like, where in my I'm doing this sort of last in my player code, all this stuff. It feels like maybe it should be first, because otherwise I might use the position in the player code and then move it. Then I can create annoying problems. All right. I'm thinking what do I use? I have this thing called the p.prevpos. What do I actually use that for? Okay, I use it to calculate some time. It's not used for much. Maybe you know, ideally I would. Currently it just does the position update plus the. Currently just does the position update and tries to pull you out of collision if you do that. Maybe it would be better to do sort of the whole thing that this does. I mean, what this essentially does is that it moves you, updates the current state of the player based on this delta time here, which means that you could take your whole update function of the player and sort of run it here. So this is sort of the. All this looks a bit weird because in their example this is like the whole program, but in my example I'm just doing it for the player. Yeah. So maybe I should take this loop and like do these things. Okay, let one thing at a time. One thing at a time. One thing at a time. Sorry, I'm gonna move the mic. Right. Yeah. Because if you actually do your update in here for each one, then you know stuff like looking at using this, then the camera would get the correct position, because otherwise, you know, what happens here in my case is that the camera gets the position the player had at the previous frame, and then it doesn't get it for this one. Let's be a bit crazy here. Let's do like this. Yeah. I can just revert all this. Fixed time step fixes work in progress. Right, so we have that, and now we can try doing more crazy stuff. So let's try doing some crazy stuff. Yay, crazy stuff. I was thinking if I could make my whole player update inside here. Or is that bad? It might be bad because sometimes this code is messed up. I really wish that all of this happened before the player did stuff, so that your position and stuff was up to date. Sort of. No, so there's even hacks in here. This is a hack because this thing here is here just because it needs to do this check continuously for each step. Because I got problems where I could slide through the floor at low frame rate. Okay, let's try some crazy stuff. Let's split the player up into two procs. Let's rename this one we currently have to cat fixed update. Good. And there's some delta time going in here, which is bad because now it will need to have the, you see, yeah, my game assumes that I can just use the delta time straight off the it assumes that I can use the whatever is in DT. This is the Raylib frame delta time. I think DT equals, you see, it just gets the frame rate, frame time here. Let's try doing this cat update. This is all very experimental. Oi, oi, oi. So we can do a profile scope here as well. Right. And then we go to the bottom of cat update. And we take I'm thinking, even if I do this, even if I put sort of my player update like this, then it will still have problems where, for example, the camera will expect to look at the smoothly interpolated. Maybe it doesn't matter that much for the camera, but it feels like the camera will like gets us, like the player is moving smoothly and then the camera sort of stutters behind, but it actually wants to move with. We'll see. We'll see. Like I said, the nice thing about, you have your version control, you can do all these crazy things. And it's just hard to get going sometimes with things like this because it's just so many things to change and I'm gonna break everything. But oh well, let's take that code. This player update function is huge. Go down here and up here. Okay, so now we have a cat update. The cat update proc sets the previous position. This one we will move here. So this is in the loop. It does this stuff. It's like previous position equals blah blah blah. This stuff, this if might not even be needed anymore, but we'll see, because since it's not going to even run the update stuff unless it gets in here, and this stuff is only used inside here. So maybe I can actually always set this to false, but we'll see. And actually, why doesn't it just... This looks like a bug even. You should probably do this. Alonso is asking if the game is single-threaded, if I consider making it multi-threaded. No, I don't haven't considered that. I mean, the whole update of the game runs in like like the whole update runs in maybe 300 microseconds on my computer. Almost the whole game is just waiting for VSync. There is like I was trying to optimize some of the gameplay stuff, but my game is mostly waiting for the GPU to do VSync. But yeah, so it's single. But I think you can do a multi-threaded renderer where you have a render thread that sort of eats jobs of a main thread or something. So at least you have 2 threads and they run independently. You can do that, but that's if you have a fancy game that needs it. For a 2D game like this, it just makes your game harder to make, and it's not gonna run any smoother. In my experience, I mean, it's like I said, the whole update runs most of the game. So the update of the game is a tiny bit, and then the rendering is much bigger than the update, and then it waits for VSync most of the remaining time. So it's maybe a few milliseconds of the update plus the render is a few milliseconds, and then it waits for VSync. And I think the update part is like less. It's like half a millisecond or something, which is this stuff I'm looking at now. I did try working on some multi-threaded, like having a separate render thread for a 2D thingy before. Then I spent lots of time working on that and not working on the game. And yeah, and it doesn't matter really. Previous pos. So this is the previous state. Okay, so it's this. So what will happen here now is we run this update proc, and we set this is the previous position it had before it does anything here. No, this is not needed anymore, because what this thing wants is the previous state, which is the last one. So you have this is set, and then it does this, updates, and then it checks this, and if this doesn't check, then you have 2 different positions sort of in previous state. Yeah, I think I showed the profiler a few streams ago where it was mostly waiting for VSync. I mean, I sometimes turn off VSync when I profile, just to see how it's easier to see how if I have frames that take unusually long time, but if I have spikes and stuff, because it's nice even if you have a nice smooth frame rate, it's nice to try to make it like, even if you have a very low frame rate numbers, it's nice to try to make it as smooth as you can, so you don't get weird feelings of stuttering. Okay, so we've done that. So here is a problem. Affected by gravity. This doesn't exist, you see, because this is a local variable inside the update function. But I guess this thing could be, as the cool kids say, yeeted. I'm a very cool kid, you understand. This is cool words. We could put it here maybe. And then the annoying thing here is that this proc can never ever use the normal DT because it's run many times now. Okay. I feel like this is gonna be, and then yeah, right. So then down here, sort of, we run cat fixed update p. So that's what we do. We run that one many times like this. And then this one will still use the wrong delta time. And then maybe we can keep the render position like that for now. This is just experimenting a bit here. Let's see. I might have, yeah, because I was thinking maybe I could get away with just setting the render pos and then trying to make sure the camera uses the render pos. But then the camera would still sort of lag behind or something like that, I think. Let's maybe find this DT thing and remove it. Now we're gonna get an amazing amount of errors, but we can look at least at where they are. Okay, this is inside the dialogue editor. Yeah, this stuff doesn't really, this is just so this is more like the frame delta time, FDT. Okay, let's do some stuff here. Let's go around and go to the errors and look at where they are. Yeah, this is all in the editor, but those can use the frame delta time. Okay, where are we now? Update animation. You see even this stuff. When the hell is this used? I'm in so much trouble. Okay. Yeah, this is just used a bit everywhere. I mean, this one, I could make this one take a DT instead. Yeah, this is not a fun problem to have right now. Let's try this. We say that dt is 1/60, right? And then we just use it here. Yeah, we will get some errors now. Because in a sense, maybe I can make my whole game just use dt everywhere. No, actually, it's only the stuff. It's only the stuff that the player, because this is only affects the player, because I don't have the physics anywhere else than on the player. It's so messy. This is very. I'm in so much trouble. And now the game is gonna be completely broken probably, because now it's compiled. Oi, it's running very fast. Need a what's it called? The funny music. Okay. Oh. This is like a recursive thing now, or not a recursive, but here I am supposed to use rl.getFrameTime. But yeah, so now it runs. Now it stops running at the weird frame rate. Everything is a bit broken, and the cat is stuttering like hell. But yeah. Okay, so let's then I'm thinking if I should have two variables. One global variable called fdt, which is the current frame time, and one called pdt, which is the physics delta time. And then I'll just fix everything from there, maybe. Okay, let's try that. We undo some stuff here. So this is the physics delta time, and then we have the normal delta time, which is dt equals blah blah blah. So we call this one fdt, it's just an f32. This one I'm actually gonna say that it is an f32. Whew. I have two FTT. Oh, okay. Move that one. Wait, hit my mic. Entering, this is like, when is this run? Who are you? Okay, this is run out in the main. This is not part of the player. It would be extremely messy for me to go around and just look at where different procs are used and just use the correct, like, oh, is this when is this called? And if it's called both from inside the player and called by some other one that does not use this, then it will use two. Then, you know, then I would have to put the delta time in a variable that the proc takes, and then maybe I used to do like this then. Look at this. Okay, this is update animation. It takes a DT F32. Fine, and then we will look at the call sites. Okay, who is this? Who's doing something? It's a long. Oh, it's in the editor. Oh. Put this one first here. This is in the camera code. Yeah, this is not a fun problem to have at this point. This is in the editor code. Then we just write FDT, frame delta time. So on each frame we add to the physics accumulator the frame delta time, right? And but then it will this stuff I will not use, and then I check if the physics delta time is okay. I'll get back to those errors. Cat fixed update. Yeah, this is the like now I'm like, okay, should this thing take a time? Maybe like that just. Okay, let's go back here. Look at some errors. It's jumping everywhere. This is called from the this is not called from inside the player. I'm in such trouble, but it will be fine. Okay, who is this? Okay, just pass along that this is in the player that updates the camera. That's sort of one of the things I really want to fix. And here we cat fixed up, we send in the physics delta time. Okay, feeling like I at least starting to get some kind of feeling for this. I'll have to test this so much if I get it to work. Where are we? We're inside the player. Okay. Okay, essentially all the animation, all the times around update animation, I now need to supply a update interaction dialog. Okay, I'm just gonna, whenever I see a DT, I will move it out so that the call site can decide. Rocket update. Interesting. You will take a DT. Welcome to watching me fix my mess. Fuck it, update default takes a DT. I have learned something here today. To have more respect for these things, because it just, because of the development environment on a 60 Hz screen combined with a few assumptions, you can get in this incredible mess where you think everything is working fine, and then you suddenly, like, you're doing some testing, and I kind of noticed once that on my laptop it sort of ran a bit less well, but I just thought it was like, oh, it's, you know, I did another assumption. Oh no, that's because the battery, the cable's not plugged in, you know, it's just some GPU crap. Okay, I'm not gonna stream forever today, so I'm just gonna try to throw all this together quickly and see where we are, and then I will look at the git diff and then I will cry, and then we'll see. But it might be that this all works out okay. Where is this? This thing already takes a DT. Amazing. Update default. Now it wants a DT. Yay! So in this case, this is not inside. This is in play mode update. Then you just get FDT here. You get FDT. You get FDT. You get FDT. the frame delta time. And then if something wants to do a fixed step update inside that, but in the future games, if I do something like this, I would do something more like this, where I have a more global view from the outside. I mean, global sort of idea of what the fixed step is and all that. But yeah, this is just a mess. But it's my mess. My beautiful mess. FDT, 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 my favorite DT. So essentially what I'm doing here is whenever something used DT, I change that to be a proc parameter, and then I've thrown it one level up, and then eventually I will see, okay, am I inside the player or am I inside the player? Am I inside the player where I'm doing a fixed step physics thing, because the only thing that uses physics is my players. That's why that code has ended up in there. Or if it's anything else, then I use the frame delta time at that point. It compiled. Okay, this is gonna restart this because I made a million changes. No, move. Yeah, so it's still stuttering. But let me just check here if oh, it just fell through the ground. I'm amazed that it wasn't more broken, to be honest. This one is like collides in feet, false, and then down here it's like, okay, collides in feet, true, then it runs the update, then it decreases that thing. I'm also gonna have, weird troubles where in this one they have a global time where you add this thing in. And I don't really have that here. Joshua is thinking of getting into game dev with Odin and wonders if I could explain the main difference between SDL2 and Raylib. If you like new into game dev, I would say go with Raylib, because Raylib provides sort of more practical things for easily making games. SDL is a bit more, what people usually say, slightly more low level, in the sense that it doesn't provide as much nice utility things for you, and it's a bit older also, so it just feels a bit less modern in some ways. But and Raylib goes very nicely with Odin somehow. So, and yeah, like Alonso says, Raylib was created for learning game dev. Like, Raylib is created by a person who teaches game programming. So that's the whole point. Like, it's supposed to be like not too simple, so that it's sort of at the right level where it teaches you real things that you can, like, the way it teaches you enables you to create games, in not in sort of like not in a too simplified way or anything. You create perfectly reasonably implemented games. But yeah, okay. Where is the camera update code? I was just thinking something now. Maybe I have made all this update cat up fixed update. The camera update code is here. Maybe I can get away with reverting all this and just moving the camera update code to just after the physics update code, and then it can use the interpolated position, and then because I think I'm gonna mess too many things up doing this. Let me stash all this crap. Now we're back at good old cat update here. And let's see here. p.lock camera. Okay. So let's take this crap, move it. Okay, let's just first run the game and see how it feels. So we have a baseline. Right. Because I think all that I just did was good from like learning process for me to see how I should do things properly, but it's just too many changes too close to. So this thing almost is correct. It's just the cat looks sort of fuzzy here, and I think that's just because the camera is lagging behind, I think. So let's see here. Let's take the camera stuff, which is this stuff, I think. The camera movement, update camera. Yeah, let's take all that stuff. Let's go to the bottom here. I often do these things where I start doing something in a sort of, I start doing the proper thing, and then I say, how much work is this? But just try do it, and then you just revert it, and then maybe you come up with some idea for a slightly simpler thing to do for now, because at this point I just need things to work. The game is, I will make a few changes here and there to the game throughout the coming days, but it's not gonna it's better to do as little changes as possible. Okay, where is the player position used here? Okay, here it gets, okay, is p.pos used here? Player start pos set. Okay, then it's used in a few places here. This is just like, this is my follow camera, so it's like which side of the screen are you on, and then it uses the player plus some offset here. So let's just, yeah, Raylib, I even have videos about getting started with Raylib and Odin. They're a bit, maybe they're too much, maybe they're too like much for beginners for some people, because I try to target them at people who don't know programming. But yeah. Okay, so let's see this. Pos equals p.pos. Let me go back in here. Steal this. If the player has a render position, then it will use that instead. Wait, and then it needs to, in all the places where it uses the player position, apparently, You just need to use this position instead. And hopefully that will make my game super smooth. Update camera. Let's look through this once again. p.pose, render pose. They will set the position. That's the camera position. Camera position. Player start pose. That's that one. Good. Pose, 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 pose. Pose, pose. Wait, what was that? Ah. Okay, let's compile that and see if it feels any better. It's so much better. I don't know if this comes through on the stream, but so before you had like the player was sort of it didn't shake as much as before, but it got sort of like soft around the, especially around the eyes. It looked like, yeah, it just looked bad. So now it always uses the player's interpolated position for drawing the camera. So the player stays just exactly where it's supposed to be on the camera. The camera is not lagging after or having to catch up sometimes or anything like that. Okay. It still doesn't, however, it doesn't strike me as super smooth. I think it's still stuttering a bit in some weird way. But it's a good start. Let's, I mean, I still do weird shit here. I have a target FPS of 90 and I have, like I said before, I have VSync turned off. Let's have VSync off and no frame rate limiter. Now we will make the computer go funny. This of course looks nice. I don't know if I might kill the stream by doing this. I've done that before, well, by running my GPU too hard. Whoa, whoa. Well, there's some kind of problem. Okay, that's interesting. I will have to look into that. .vsync hint. .vsync hint. What I saw there was the gravity affected by gravity. The gravity did not get added correctly. That was what was happening there. So this thing, I mean, what was happening there was that the delta time was tiny. Like we could have printed it, but it would probably be like, you know, the game is running at 2000 FPS or something. And then, but let's look at that later. That's too many things at once. So now the game runs with VSync on, but no Raylib frame limiter. Sort of looks okay, but there's like stuttering there. That's a bit, yeah, that stuff. What the hell is that? Tick, 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 tick. What the hell is that? Okay, let me look a bit. Update camera when it is lerping across. Okay, that uses the delta time. This is the Raylib delta time. It just used to lerp it. Yeah. Oh well. I'm gonna tinker around a bit more with this, but because I was only gonna stream until 6 today. Now it's 20 past 6. But it's I clearly have some interesting problems. I'll see if I can maybe resolve the remaining ones easily somehow. It's mostly trying to I think I'm having a different problem now, because now the camera is smoothly following the players. Let me check something in draw world. Parallax offset, camera mid. Camera mid, who are you? Camera middle, camera. Camera rec. Okay, who's this camera you have there? Camera state. This thing updates the camera state. Based on the player's position now. Thought this might work properly. And now it feels like the whole background is sort of doing something funny. But anyways, I have to go. But this was an interesting, more almost philosophical about frame time step problems, and you know, it just goes to show, like, this is a classic article, but I sort of knew about the things in this article, but somehow I thought that some of it didn't apply to my game, and now I'm very close to shipping, and I have problems where, you know, so the problem is I thought I could just get away with us. I didn't do this properly, and then I added a 60 hertz lock, but then that doesn't work properly either, so now I must sort of make things work properly, and it's all a bit of a mess, and it's quite stressful, but we'll see what happens. I will update you on it. I have another stream tomorrow. We'll see. I'll update you then on how it went. But I will see you people around. Thanks for watching. If you wanna discuss game dev things, you can hop on my Discord server. There's a link to that on my channel. And also, if you want to buy my game when it releases next week, when all this is hopefully fixed, then you can wishlist it on Steam if you want to. I mean, it will work. It currently works very nicely on 60 hertz. It's just tiny less nice on non 60 hertz. So we'll see. But anyways, bye bye.